Welcome in, everybody. It's Always Soccer in Philadelphia program. We are flying the bat signal, raising the bat signal. What do you do with a bat signal? We are projecting the bat signal because desperate times call for desperate measures. And Philadelphia Union right now are the only team in Major League Soccer without a point. They are last place in the combined table. They have gone from first to worst in less than 6 months. They are down 1-0 on aggregate to Club America in the round of 16 in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But other than that, everything is great. So to diagnose what's going on with the Philadelphia Union and other things tonight, let's bring in everybody's favorite liberal apologist writer, Jose Nunez, joining the show tonight. What was that all about, man? That guy was like up your ass last week.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I suppose that the idea of welcoming foreign people who maybe look slightly different than you, maybe speak a different language than you, is such a terrible thing to do. I don't know, man. I mean, Kevin, you know me better than most, I would say, just in the conversations we have behind the scenes. But I feel like I'm a normal dude. If anything, probably, compared to a lot of people that certainly I know, I probably lean more of the conservative side of things. But to be accused, not even accused, I don't even know if accused is the right word, but like try to be called out like that is just hilarious.
Well, I guess the guy's take, had never even heard of him before. I guess his take was that we should not want to be welcoming to other fans in attendance. We should want to beat their ass on the field of play. I think that was kind of the take. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out. I'd never heard it. I didn't know there were any other conservative soccer pundits out there besides Alexi Lawless. So, so I was like just as surprised as anybody. But I did not find your comments to be far left, like participation trophy comments about I thought that you wanted the Philadelphia Union to win, is what I determined from those comments. But with the backdrop, of course, that we didn't want anybody to get murdered.
Yes.
This time around. So like, let's be aware of what's going on here with the Club America fans in town. So yeah, but just for the record, I don't think you're a biased soccer commentator. So
I appreciate that. I put a lot of hard work in making sure that that part of my life doesn't bleed into it. Not that it's overly strong, but I genuinely mean it. I do my hardest to, and I think you appreciate this about me. Whenever you read stuff from me or see stuff from me, it's usually like, here's who, what, where, when, and that's about it. Unless I make it very apparent that it's my opinion, which I put out opinion semicolon, like, I don't know, man, it is what it is. People choose to say what they say, and obviously faceless accounts and accounts that have massive followings of, hive mind type of things. It's impossible to have discourse. It's a shame.
Well, listen, I've just popped a ice cold IPA here. So no, I'm just kidding. It's one of the victories. You see these things, man? We got the collaboration, the 250th birthday.
That's awesome. No, I didn't know that those came out. We celebrated a little one turning 6 this weekend. So Saturday must have been when my wife started making me do some work around the house at 11 till probably 3 a.m, trying to stay up for Formula One. It was just nonstop drinking. So right now I'm sort of just recovering a little bit, so my stomach turns hearing about beer right now.
It's all right. Well, I would try not to trigger you with any further comments about it. I'll just drink it on my own here. So listen, we I guess you could call this an emergency show because the Union are just nothing's working for them at this point in time. We did, however, get hit with some breaking news, a breaking news situation earlier today, where the findings of the Ernst Tanner investigation were finally released. So let me just read first the statement that Major League Soccer put out, and then I'll read you the Philadelphia Union Club statement here. So Major League Soccer said, quote, following the completion of an investigation conducted by the law firm Littler Mendelsohn, no relation to Ben Mendelsohn, who is the actor on Rogue One and Bloodline.
Mercersburg Academy alum.
That's you're exactly right. Yeah. Major League Soccer has suspended Philadelphia Union sporting director Ernst Tanner without pay through June 1st, 2026. On November 19th of 2025, Major League Soccer reopened its investigation into allegations of inappropriate and insensitive comments, and Mr. Tanner was placed on administrative leave. Based on new information obtained during the outside counsel's independent review, the investigation substantiated violations of MLS policies and standards of professional conduct required of league and club leadership. Prior to his reinstatement, Tanner must successfully complete a league-approved restorative practices program. And then it says MLS is fostering an environment of respect, inclusion, and accountability. We will continue working to ensure that our clubs reflect those principles at every level of the organization. Then the union's statement is not as long. And they say, based on the findings from Major League Soccer's investigation, Philadelphia Union supports the league's disciplinary action and restorative practices program for sporting director Ernst Tanner. The union will evaluate the best and appropriate structure for the organization following the disciplinary process. During this time, John Shear, director of Academy of Professional Development, will serve as interim sporting director. Philadelphia Union remain committed to maintaining a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment for everyone associated with our club. And then the statement finally from Ernst Tanner: I regret the impact that this situation has had on the Philadelphia. I regret the impact that this situation has had on the Philadelphia Union organization and its supporters. I remain proud of my work with the Philadelphia Union and look forward to my return and future work with the team. So working back to front, I mean, that doesn't sound like an admission of any guilt on his part. I mean, there's no apology in there or anything. Nor does it say, you go back to Pablo's story that he wrote for The Guardian when he broke this last year. He had some specific instances of things that Ernst said, was accused of saying. The MLS statement doesn't touch on any of that. So, I think we're still a little in the dark here in terms of what specifically they found and what they were able to corroborate and what they were able to not corroborate. So, whatever judgment that we render is going to be incomplete, I guess. And it doesn't sound like there's much contrition from Ernst here. So those are my real time kind of observations. Cause like I told you before we started, I wasn't even really prepared to talk about. So I'm kind of developing this take in real time, but you tell me what you make of all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm all for investigations taking whatever time they need to take to come out to I don't know that the word perfect applies, but the correct outcome. But for this investigation to take 117 days and then ultimately the unpaid punishment to only last through what is it, June 2nd? So that would be 70 odd days, maybe 80 days until I guess June 1 is kind of it's an interesting thing to see, considering that, to your point, what if everything that was alleged against Ernst was true? I don't know that the dude would be allowed to work within MLS, right? Considering that initial article.
Yeah.
I don't know if the word is how damning that was, but obviously some very tough things that he was being accused of. So that's my initial take of what was true then and what wasn't. Interestingly enough, I'm gonna have of all people, I'm gonna have my father-in-law record a 25-30 minute segment at some point this week. He's actually he has a PhD in restorative practice, and he knows what restorative practice would be for multiple types of situations. And I spoke with him on the phone for 15-20 minutes today about this specific situation, and he kind of has a good idea of what restorative practice looks like for this type of thing, though what really complicates it is the anonymous nature of it all. He's not quite sure how they would go about it. He has an idea, but more to come on that. And I think my final take on all this, and I know it wasn't immediately mentioned by MLS, but in The Guardian, I was I was so glad that Pablo saw this, because I saw it myself and people in my immediate orbit knew that I picked up on this. But to see Richie Graham be so, I don't know if you picked up on that. Richie Graham had taken a picture with Ernst Tanner, 2 pictures with Ernst Tanner in the middle of Europe skiing or at a ski lodge or whatever.
Yeah, I did see that picture a little earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So what really shocks me is the not realizing the optics, or maybe I'm likely reading too much into it. And maybe it coincides with the way that Ernst is replying to this, which by the statement totally sounds like a dude who's going to come in June 2nd and get back to work, hoping that his desk has no cobwebs, right? Ready to get back at it. But, like, I hate to call rich people, but like, people in power who don't realize the optics behind it all. And, or likely people who completely don't believe anything about this investigation, allegedly or whatever. Like it's so fascinating to see the way some of these folks operate. If I'm Ernst Tanner, I'm thinking, no, like no pictures of me anywhere near you. Like we might be friends off of it all. And I help you make a lot of money by selling players that are young and talented, but do not snap pictures of me with you. That's just me though.
Yeah, there seems to be a little bit of lack of awareness there, and maybe just some brazenness in the idea that maybe they thought that they were just too big to fail, to borrow a term from the recession, or like uncancelable. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they just felt like they were gonna get through this with no issues, and it would all blow over at some point. And it's like I say, it's hard for us to really render judgment without MLS, individually saying like, we corroborated this, we corroborated that, this we could not confirm. So like at the end of the day, we don't know, did he say something racist and did he say something sexist, or did he just say something sexist and not racist? Did he not say either one of those things? Is there something new that came to light that wasn't even reported? So I don't even know what the hell, what are we supposed to? We got nothing to go with,
Yeah.
Well, what I do know is that this team is screwed without him. And, at the end of the day, a lot of us sat here and looked the other way while Kai Wagner went through his whole thing with Bobby Wood, and we just kind of brushed that aside. I think most of the fan base is doing that here too. So whether it's a slap on the wrist or not, I don't know. You know me, man. I'm not Mr. Woke over here, but some of this does feel a little gross to me. It just feels like there's a lack of, like, even if they were going to come through it and he was going to keep his job and it was going to be no problem, like some admission or contrition or some kind of like apology or something like that. Like lesser people have gotten canceled and just absolutely killed for shit that's not even half as bad as he was alleged to do. So I don't know. I mean, if the outcome is what it is, we're not going to get any information. I don't know what there is to talk about, but it feels like it all just could have been handled a little bit better, and maybe said some things or done some things on the back end to assuage maybe some concerns that people in the fan base have. And I'm kind of with you, man. I just think there's a better way to handle it with the optics of it and the way that they, the statement that Ernst made today,
That statement is the biggest piece for me. And listen, there's no consensus in this whole thing, right? I've been sort of lurking on the Sons of Ben Discord genuinely just to read. I share there occasionally. I must admit I am friendly with a good group in there of people for sure. But there's certainly no consensus in terms of, I've seen both sides, like maybe I shouldn't be watching this team for the foreseeable future, to ultimately wanting to say, well, MLS is completely screwing the union on a sham investigation. It almost feels a little goofy to say, a witch hunt per se. But what I will say is, I don't think Ernst is interested, and maybe rightfully so, but zero to no interest in wanting to win the what's the saying, Kevin, that the court of
public opinion. Yeah.
That statement tells me that he has no interest in being in that arena.
Wait. Hold on. You're telling me you're going to go out on a limb here and tell me that the ruthless German dude who will sell anybody or trade anybody at, on a whim, doesn't care about what people think about him, right?
No. And listen, I see this comment from Matthew Ligman, who I think I recognize the name. Like, Is it something that was worked out between lawyers that this is the approved statement on both sides? Maybe, but again, like maybe it's the communicator in me. I've worked through, crisis firms at different institutions in the past. Kind of heard the thinking behind, how you say it, what you say it, when you say it. And it's almost comical too, because the statement both from Ernst and the club came a cool hour or two before I got an email about taking kids to the field to kick after the Chicago Fire game. Like it's just, it's really
now get your tickets for Kids Day coming up.
So I guess maybe to bookend it here, had I been Ernst, or if I was anywhere near Ernst, I think my only suggestion would have been like not even necessarily a sorry, but like I look forward to taking the next steps to make sure I can come back and help the Philadelphia Union continue to be a successful powerhouse in MLS, or some sort of
Or I look forward to showing people that like I don't know, like advance this story. It just sounds to me like he's just saying like, I'm sorry if you were offended by that, like that's what that's what it sounds like here. And I'm not the dude to go on Twitter and be like, this is a non-apology, canceling. But that's exactly what the fuck this is. I regret the impact this situation has had on the organization and its supporters, but nowhere there does he actually cop to anything or apologize or take accountability for anything.
Yeah.
So
Two immediate things come to mind. It sounds like a Tony Hinchcliffe level apology after the Puerto Rico trash island joke. Yeah. Or again, to your point, just someone who's like, I'm sorry if my joke hurt you, or something like that. Like, again, if two schmucks like you and I can sit down and wordsmith craft a bullshit apology to something that you don't feel bad about, I like to think that lawyers that make triple what we make in an hour can come up with something, like maybe I'm just being a little too optimistic.
I know. I just think it's so funny. Like we are not the litmus test for this, like if this didn't pass our smell test, then imagine what the Portland Timbers or
Seattle
or the supporters section would have thought if this happened to them, so
yeah.
I think that's probably the story there. If there was enough fans that really gave a shit about it, then maybe it'd be different. But I guess people were just like, well, we're not going to get a lot of people up our butt about it, and we can just sort of sweep it under the rug and move on. And like, quite frankly, whatever you think about it, I mean, they need Ernst to come back in and make some signings and figure this thing out, because they've looked like a shell of the team that won the Supporters Shield last year, 0-4 in the league. They beat a semi-pro, we can call it Defense Force, a semi-pro team. They beat them 12-0 on aggregate in the Champions League, down 1-0 to Club America now. Let's just start very basic here and just kind of trickle down. I think the captain obvious starting point for all this would be like, last year you sold two of your best players, worked out perfectly fine. Maybe it's not going to work a second year in a row, getting rid of Ty Baribo, Jacob Glesnes, and Kai Wagner. Whether we agreed with that or not, I think we were all probably in consensus that, all right, Kai had deserved it and he's playing well in Birmingham, and nothing much more for him to achieve here, but left a black hole, a gaping chasm of a Mariana Trench size black hole at left back. You lost Jacob Glesnes, who's the best center back you ever had, and you can't score goals, but Ty Baribo is doing fine in DC so far. So I think the thing where I take it from there is like, Bradley Carnell, one of the things that he did really, really well last year, and one of the strengths, was that 18 dudes scored a goal for this team last year. And you can't, and Carnell has done a lot of squad rotation, a lot of mixing and matching, trying to figure out what he has here in these first couple games. He doesn't really have that luxury right now because they're not playing well. He's got to just find the best 11 dudes, go from there. Is this Ndinga guy at left back the real deal? Is Larson going to be your center back? Are you going to have a Harriel in there? Figure out your best striker pair. Should Cavan start or not? I think he's just got to settle on his best 11, get something stable, get a couple points here, and then start to mix in one or two guys here or there, and then maybe go into your depth. But you can't go 18 deep now because you don't know who your best 11 is. And I think that's been pretty obvious. So, I mean, that's very surface level, but would you agree with me? It's just like, let's figure out what the hell we have here, start from there, and then we'll see what all these other guys have.
Yeah, I mean, I may even take it a step further, Kevin, and say get the little shit right. I mean, I spoke about it with Todd, our good friend Todd Lewis of the Free Kick Pod. Of even if you're watching these games and you don't have an eye for it, you certainly can spot that there's broken links of communication. There's simple passes being missed. They're trying flicks when they shouldn't be trying to flick the ball on. They're trying to thread the needle through 9 guys instead of passing, the easy ball to the next guy. So if they can't even get that shit right, I don't even know that I'm too interested in seeing what the best 11 is, because this is a team that relies on a rotating cast week in and week out. I mean, countless, you mentioned scorers, 18 of them last year, but countless starting lineups last year that you remember the Jim Curtin days where 95% of his roster was set, and it was just who was going to come in for X player, Y player who maybe had a knock from the week earlier. With Cornell, it feels like every other match day you're thinking, all right, who are the 3 or 4 that are coming off this match and who's coming in for them? So I think he needs to become a little more predictable in that sense. And his post-match press conference was I said it to Todd and others, like, I really appreciated just how honest he was in terms of putting his guys to the fire a bit, right? Like, there's anxiety. It feels like there's an anxious bunch right now, afraid to make a mistake. Then you have also an anxious bunch who can't do the little things right. So much like you, and I'm probably rambling at this point, but I don't know what Sari Larson is, right? I haven't watched enough of the dude to figure out whether he is actually going to be a starter, but I think that was the initial intention. And then just going up the spine, right? Like, how do you not start Danley Jean-Jacques against Club America and have a Jesus Bueno? And
I turned that game on late, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. I turned that on like late because I was putting the kids down or whatever. And I'm looking at it. I see Cavan out there and I see Bueno out there. And I'm like, do I have the right game on here? Do I have like the replay of like the last like DC game on or something? Like, what am I looking at? I was like, shit, okay. Like, a heavily rotated leg one home against Club America. Yeah.
And I think the last thing I'll say before we continue the conversation and get some more thoughts from you is, yes, it's a bad start, 0-4, but if you really take a look at it, Kevin, a single win is what's separating them from a team like Cincinnati and Pat Noonan, which is Cincinnati beat Atlanta 2-0. That's the only thing that's keeping them separated. Yeah. They're so close in terms of goal score. They both played relatively shitty teams in CONCACAF going into the next round. Sure, they went ahead and beat one of the Mexican sides to give themselves, I think, a 3-0 advantage going into Wednesday. But Pat Noonan gets every single weapon he wants off the market. There's some serious spending going on with Cincinnati. So for that team to be 1-3, I think they are. Yeah, they're 1-3 in league play.
Well, they're in the Champions League too.
Yeah, and to have a -5 goal differential, I think things could be a lot worse, especially if they're doing that type of spending. Not to make excuses, I'm not a bootlicker. Please don't take me that way. But like, I think it's just so early for some of the shitty takes I'm seeing, because they're not taking into account a team like Cincinnati, for example, that's having honestly just a rough of a time.
No, and look, I mean, I don't know whether those takes are being framed with the idea that like, well, the shield is out of reach.
Of course it is.
With the further context of like, they don't think that the Union are ever going to do anything in the playoffs anyway. So like, I wonder if some of these people are just looking at it as like the shield is the ceiling and you're playing yourself out of that early. So maybe that's where the WIP, fire Carnell and whatever takes are coming from, and it's hard for me to blame people if they feel that way. Cause I do think that there's a lot of people who say, well, there is a hard ceiling on this team. And like, I see if they're not playing well now, then they're not going to do much later. So I get where that's coming from, but I think it's silly. Let me just steer to 2 thoughts here. Talk about like getting the small things right. Brett Brown used to have this saying when I covered the Sixers, where his philosophy was that you want to perfect vanilla. You want to perfect vanilla, which means you want to just start with the most basic things that you have as part of your system. In the Sixers case, running that like A to B motion offense that he ran, for the entirety of his career here. Let's perfect that before we even go to any like too high horn set or run any like pin downs or anything. Let's get our base offense right and let's go from there. And what does that look like for the Philadelphia Union? It's about getting back to the identity that they showed last year, which was pressing. The counter press doesn't really look like it's there right now. They're not really turning over a lot of people. And when they do turn them over, they're not getting forward direct in transition and kind of hitting, these 4v3s and 5v4s and things that they were doing last year and under Jim Curtin as well. So that's the one thing, your off ball identity, but their identity with the ball. You mentioned earlier them trying to kind of play through the middle and trying to find these like avenues and whatever to hit the strikers and whatnot. The Union were at their best last year and the year before that and the year before that, playing Kai up the left, just letting him thump crosses into the box, seeing what happens from there, scoring some goals off of that, draw a foul, get a set piece, get a corner kick off of it, recycle the set piece, counter press off the counter, all of those things. I don't really see them like doing really much of that at all right now. They don't seem to have that identity. I think they've worked hard and the work rate has been there in every game, perhaps except the Atlanta game from this past weekend, where his shoulders were looking a little slumped and like the body language was slightly off. I thought at some point.
Hands in the air.
Guys kind of looking around like, what the hell, So I think you got to start there. Like, look, you don't have Kai. I mean, he was the answer to all the stuff when they had the ball. Like, he was their outlet, dude. Going to Kai Wagner was like the Los Angeles Lakers going to Kobe. Like, he's always going to be there, and he's always going to pound something in, and something's, either somebody gets on the end of it, or you win a corner, or whatever. They're trying to play through this clogged middle, and I think to connect it to what Ben is saying here in the chat, he says, what made the Union so good for years was the fact that you knew Glesnes and Elliott would be your CB pairing. The lack of chemistry and constant rotation has hurt this team. So you have to start by getting the back line set, and the fullbacks especially, because this team does not have creative types. They don't play with a number 10. They don't have, line splitters or guys who can really open up a defense. So you play when you do have the ball for a non-possession counter-pressing Red Bull team, you play the flanks and you pump crosses in. So in my mind, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, I'm setting Frankie Westfield at right back, leaving him there. Makanya at center back. Larson, if he's healthy, has to be the other center back because you got to see what this dude has. And Ndinga at left back. Leave that back line intact. Do not change that back line for like 3 or 4 games in a row now. Nate Harriel, we know what Nate Harriel is, right? He can fill any of the spots on the back line, but until you get that 4 enough games together to build some chemistry and know what they have, then you're just fucking around with it, man. I mean, like, Harriel does not need to be playing center back or left back or right back or anything. Ndinga was late getting here. Put the guy there, leave him there. Westfield has been dicked around, moved around, put him at right back, leave him there. You have Makanya, who last year was able to be CB2. He's got to be the guy now. He's got to up his game, and Larson has to settle in. But you got to start with that, man. It's like what Chris Pronger said on Spittin' Chicklets. I'm going to do another cross-sport analogy here. Chris Pronger was talking about the Flyers rebuild on Spittin' Chicklets, and he's talking about all these wings that they have. They have Porter Martone, and they have Travis Konechny, and they have Matvei Mishkov and all that. They don't have a 1D or a 1C or a franchise goaltender. They don't have anything through the spine. And when you build a team, most of the times how you do it is through the spine. So you have a goalkeeper in soccer, you have a center back, you have a defensive midfielder, and then you have like a cam or like a DP striker or something like that. That's where you got to go. So to me, they got to start with the back line, and like the scene in the Bronx Tale where they put the guy in the bathroom, where they put Frankie Mush in the bathroom or whatever his name is. Leave him there. Leave him in there. They got to leave the back line. Don't mess around with the back line. Start and go from there.
I wholeheartedly agree. I would even go a step further to say don't fuck with the back line. And I think it was due to injury. Jovan Lukic had a slow start. He had that rib injury that kept him off the field for a couple of games. And just, even this Atlanta game, I think he was probably the best, if not the second best player, though it wasn't a very high bar to watch. I would even consider putting Nate Harriel at right back and allowing Frankie to take over Vasilev's job up there and maybe have him tuck in a little bit, because the kid, when the Union looked very, very good that second half against Atlanta, or better, I should say, was when Frankie was starting to do different things with the ball, right? In terms of crossing early. That didn't work that time. Okay, I'm going to try to dribble at somebody and try to get a ball across. Oh, okay, that didn't work that time. I'll step on it and pass it, try to swing it back around in the middle through the Danleys of the world or Lukic's of the world. So I hate to like meddle with people's jobs, but I'm having a hard time seeing right now with what this team needs, where a Vasilev comes in that maybe again, a Frankie in that position doesn't give you, in terms of being a homing missile for press, which, to your point earlier, the press is just not there with how easily even a team as bad as Atlanta can break it. God forbid. I don't even remember the schedule off the top of my head, but this schedule was so friendly to them this early stage of the season for this year. Imagine watching these guys against an LAFC or a San Diego. The type of throttling they would receive would just be unreal. But then this league is so unpredictable, and I think that's what makes it fun. Not to harp on Cincinnati, but Cincinnati just lost 6-1 to New England.
Yeah, but didn't they thump Tigres in the middle of the week?
Exactly. So you just don't know what the fuck you're gonna get.
Yeah, and that was largely, a big reason why the Union won the Shield last year, is because they didn't have that entanglement, early in the year, where they had a thin fixture list and they were able to do this heavy rotation because they did not. They were not in the Club World Cup like Miami was. They're on the Champions Cup like Cincinnati was. So that was beneficial, and now they're having trouble sort of navigating that with a lot of new faces. Let's move it a lineup. I like your idea of Westfield in the midfield, just somebody who can create anything, whether he's playing right back or right midfield. If he can get forward and pound some balls into the box, would be a threat up the flank. I think that's a start. Danley, I feel like every Always Soccer episode we do some kind of Keon Daniel reference. I think Danley Jean-Jacques is throwing it back to the people who are with us from the very beginning.
Chaco Maidana style running.
Danley Jean-Jacques is like Keon Daniel on steroids.
Yeah.
The dude is probably never going to score another goal for the Philadelphia Union. He took a shot with his left foot in the Atlanta game. I think he sliced it so bad that I think it just like skittered across the 18 or something like that. But he's a workhorse and a two-way grinder. And he's always going to be, when you're playing that flat 4-4-2, or we'll call it the empty bucket, so that the two midfielders are next to each other in a double pivot. He is obviously the more defensive-minded guy.
Yeah,
Lukic is the guy who's got the offensive skill and some creativity and some vision. Lukic has to play a lot better. He has to contribute going forward. He hasn't looked like himself. Frankly, at the end of last year, he did not look like he did at the beginning of last year. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the injury. Maybe that's bothering him, but Lukic has to step it up and give them some creativity through the middle. Indiana Vasilev is like Ray Gaddis. He's like Alec Boehm, like Bryson, like a mid-level Phillies kind of player, where he like Indy Vasilev is not going to lose you a game, but Indy Vasilev is probably not going to win you a game either. He's a steady, like coach's kind of dream, where you're going to go out and you're going to get work rate out of him. He's going to give you a little bit going forward, give you a little bit in defense. He's probably not going to screw much up unless it's the first game of the season, when he had that kind of like he scuffed that cross on the recycled set piece and DC got a counter out of it. But Indy Vasilev is a safe player. Yes, this is very accurate. Indy is Brian Carroll.
I would say put some respect on Brian Carroll a little bit.
Well, in the sense that, like, he's not going to. But how many games did Brian Carroll ever lose in the Union? Like,
no, zero. What was the comment, Kevin, when I remember reading, I don't know if it was one of your pieces or a Karith piece, going back to those OG Union guys, but yeah. I think somebody had interviewed a player for the response to Brian Carroll being traded to Philadelphia, and the initial comment was, "Congratulations, you just made the playoffs," because he was just reliable.
It was so funny, man. I mean, he was like, and BC was probably the most boring quote of all time, but much like he was on the field, that dude was consistent, man. He would always be there in the locker room. He would always make himself available to you. Like just a model of consistency. I think that's what Bradley Carnell sees in Vasilev as
Sure.
like somebody made the comment the other day that Vasilev is Carnell's, Carnell's Vasilev is like Jim Curtin throwing Ali Bedoya out there game after game after game, year after year after year, and coaches just have favorites that they like and have guys. But I will advance the discussion, as they say, by asking you a question. You have two wide midfield spots, assuming that they're going to play empty bucket. You have Vasilev, you have Anello, you have Kevin Sullivan, maybe Westfield, like as you like. Two spot, 4 guys or 5 guys for 2 spots. You're putting the lineup together right now. Who are your 2 wide midfielders?
Obviously, last year the answer would have been a lot easier. Alosky, as it stands right now, I think Alosky has to play. He's the one who has created the most off the dribble. Unfortunately, not on target or even fucking set pieces, dude. Some of the set pieces that he's trying to put in. I mean, I joked yesterday with Todd where maybe 5 minutes ago at this time yesterday, his free kick against Club America finally landed. The one that he just hit outside of the fucking stadium where it was supposed to be a cross. It was just awful. But I think Alosky kind of gives you something there. And I think I do stick with the Frankie Westfield. I think he's the type of kid that just gives you so much mentally and certainly in his play. And if it's not Frankie, I don't know, man. Like even in watching that Club America game, I asked Cornell about it. I think I got a non-answer if I recall correctly, but Cavan would have been fun. Cavan was absolutely fun against Club America the first 45, maybe a little lax on its defensive assignments, but why not? The Cavan experiment's a little interesting and probably a whole topic all on its own. But probably a coin flip at this point between Cavan and Frankie, just based off of that, again, terrible miss against Club America. I still can't believe how shitty that shot was.
So taking the exercise a step further, I think you and I would both be in agreement that if Quinn Sullivan was healthy, he would be a shoe-in on the right. I honestly, if I'm putting together the starting lineup right now, I'm going Blake, Dinga, Larson, Bacanya, Westfield. I'm playing Quinn on the right. I'm playing Cavan on the left. I'm playing Danley and Lukic in the middle. And I'm playing Ilosky as a forward.
Okay.
With take your pick of Damiani or Alado or Korzenowski. I mean, to me, they've all largely been the same guy. I just think that whatever argument, like you're not scoring goals, right? You need some kind of creativity or whatever. You can't afford to like not have your creative, guys in positions to make plays. And like to me, I can't make an argument that Vasilev or Anello or any of these other guys is playing any better than Kevin Sullivan right now. Am I like crazy? I'm not, I'm not like I was not like rah, Kevin 14 is the greatest friggin' story of all time. I was annoyed by that shit. I was like, enough with the Kevin Sullivan media tour. Wake me up when the dude gets on the field. It was like Joel Embiid's first 2 years with the Sixers. I'm going to refer to every other Philly sports team on this podcast. I just have the Eagles to go. But it was like, wake me the fuck up when Kevin finally gets on the field, and then I'll be excited. I wasn't excited about the guy serving chicken fingers at Raising Cane's. But now that he's out there, played well against Club America. I don't think that there's anything really separating that group of wingers right now. I wouldn't even call them wingers. They're playing as wide midfielders in this system. But I'd start Quinn on the right. I'd start Kevin on the left. And they spent a lot of money on this Alado guy. I haven't seen much from him. I want Ilosky closer to the goal where he can either drift wide or he can kind of pull in deep, fill that void where Lukic is not. Maybe be creative up there. But I'm just looking to get the most dangerous guys I have on the field. And, I feel like I'll throw it back to you with this. I feel like the trio of Alado, Damiani, Korzenowski is a little redundant in skill set. I'm sure you watch more Union 2 than I have. last year, and you could probably speak to that better than I do. But I never really liked the idea of having two like thumpers up
Yeah.
top. I like having two strikers that have different skill sets. But
Yeah, that's what Mika Ua brought you last year, right? In terms of somebody who can just run, try to stretch the lines a little bit, try to give some verticality to the game. Though I think what I would push back a little bit with, and watching some Alado tape and sort of getting the understanding on who Alado is, what he is supposed to be in terms of a player for Philadelphia in the system. I don't think that Alado has really had the opportunity to fully see that because of how predictable. Sure, the fucking red card, of course,
yeah.
but also.
Well, look at how long it took. I mean, Baribo took a while to get settled and whatever. I mean, these guys only played a handful of games, you know. So I will toss it back to you with the admission that, like, yes, we've only seen.
It was comical to see that Apple TV, and I posted the video, but talking about Berterame out in Inter Miami, talking about who the fuck was the other striker? There was another striker that they were complaining about scoring 0 goals, and then it was Alado and Latte La. And I'm thinking to myself, Alado has only played 58 minutes. Latte La has scored 7 in 30 odd games. Berterame just got to the league, but sure, make this comparison, but it might be worthwhile to put the value that teams paid for these guys, where Latte was a $22 million player, Berterame was a $50 million transfer, Alado's a cool short $4.5 million. So maybe the standard needs to be a little different. But I think, to my initial point, the predictability, and Bruno Damiani has talked about it countless times now post-match, in terms of, teams know what we're doing right now prior to Ndinga coming, which was everything was flowing through the right. They know that we're going to try to dump it there, and that's all we're doing. But now with Ndinga, someone who I'm sure from you watching the Atlanta game, I think he had a few successful dribbles at just sort of eliminating 2 or 3 players just on the beat before passing the ball, and maybe making defenses think a little bit differently, rather than, oh shit, Ben Bender, or oh shit, so-and-so. They're not a threat to put a ball in early. They're not a threat of dribbling at us. They're just going to cut in and pass it on to Lukic or Oloski or Danley. Now with Ndinga, you sort of add an extra layer, an extra dimension, I guess is the soccer speak that you would use for it.
Yeah.
And maybe allowing some more space for Alado and Damiani to work within the box, rather than having these guys just glued to 2 defenders front and back. So I think the jury's out for him. And I appreciate Ben Brecker bringing up Jakupovic out in Union too. He is a player that, Kevin, I think you and I and many, many others will be speaking about here in the next coming year or two as a absolute, and he made his CONCACAF Champions Cup debut against Defense Force, for what it's worth, first team debut. But he's a kid that I think you're gonna be talking about here, or better learning about here in the next couple of months, if not year or two. Just an absolute stud. But I agree with you. It's tough to see how, and I want it to work, because I love what Damiani does off the ball. I love what I've seen of film of Alado in terms of being just a brute with an incredible amount of space, incredible amount of speed and strength. But it's just not happening right now. But I'm hopeful that the Ndinga addition, someone who gets acclimated on that left back spot, although right-footed, can maybe change things up a little bit to give those forwards more.
Yeah, space. What's his deal, man? Because that's like, he had they signed a right-footed left back. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, that's what you're looking at. I must admit, I don't know how good he is with his left foot. I don't recall too many opportunities where he actually had the opportunity to cross the ball. I can immediately think of the Vasilev cross in the second minute. Yeah. That was a chance by Damiani. But beyond that, I don't know that I saw many crosses, because by the time he was up there, it was basically, and he needs to work on free throws, by the way. My goodness, he's shit at throwing the ball in.
Yeah. Every throw in, it looks like a foul throw.
Yeah, like, every single one of them.
Like he's like twisting like this.
Yes.
Like,
so yeah, no, it's not conventional for sure.
Yeah, because there was a sequence in the Atlanta game where he kind of like squirted through and he won the ball, and he was like kind of like 5 yards off the corner of the 18, and he just hit like a dribbler with his right foot. I'm like, fuck, is this guy right-footed? Like, what the hell? You know, because I've played like a little bit of every position at some point before, not at a high level, but the hardest position I've ever played as a right-footed player was left back.
Mm.
I felt like I was just like a fish out of water. I couldn't do anything down the line. Everything you want to cut in. I mean, like in the global game, there are not a lot of inverted fullbacks. Like guys like Philip Lahm are not common. A guy who can play
They're not playing MLS.
No, you're not going to find them. Now you find inverted wingers
Yes.
everywhere. Like Arjen Robben, everybody knew that his right foot was just for standing on, and everybody knew he was going to cut in on the left.
Aneo, same thing. He's the type of guy who cuts in with his right foot every single time when he's on the left wing.
So I just don't, if you have a left back who's 20 years old and he's right-footed, then and he's already got the unfortunate distinction of replacing the best left back in the league and one of the best players of all time on your roster. What is this guy supposed to do? Like, what are we expecting out of this guy? He's not going to bang in crosses unless he's cutting in and playing inverted and hitting them in with his right foot. And you've got like $7 million in transfer fees tied up in two huge strikers who are better with their head than their feet. So wouldn't you go out and sign a left-footed left back who can, serve some crosses into the box, maybe take some set pieces or something? I don't know. It just doesn't like feel like a signing that they would typically make. Which I meant to ask you, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know at what point Ernst stopped making decisions, if he ever did? Because I would assume that the first wave of moves that they made after the suspension was stuff that was already like it had already been in the works for a few months. I'm sure. Do you know that if there was anything that was made that was done by other people besides him? Because it doesn't feel like a move that he would make.
I'm not sure how to answer this. I think it's obvious to see some connections that maybe have expanded, because obviously John Shearer has been part of the machine for a while in terms of learning from Ernst. Guy before his interim promotion right now, was already speaking like an Ernst Tanner, that position. I know some people call them CSOs, whatever the fuck you want. Sporting director is the term I like. I think chief soccer officer sounds like a dumb fucking name.
That's a douchey name. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
But I would think that some of Boston River being the biggest one, obviously that's where Damiani came from. That's where Aneo just came from. I'm sorry, Boston River's where Damiani played at one point.
Yeah.
Boston River's where Aneo was before coming over. So the connections there, it's hard to see where there was a clean break. But if I was to guess, genuinely just a guess, I would think that maybe Ndinga is maybe somebody they had on a dry erase board at one point with Ernst, but never actually, again, I just total guess, maybe never actually like presented as like, this is number 2, number 3 on the pecking order for the Kai Wagners, because there were rumors of 2 other players that they tried, or one that they tried didn't work. Knew about that one. I think it was Aries. I think was his last name. Arius. I don't know, but the team did not want to sell him.
Like the god of war from Greek mythology.
I don't remember. I think it was a French team, 2nd division.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course. And that didn't pan out. So maybe Ndinga is option number 3. There was this slight comment. I missed it, but Todd mentioned it to me that the during the Atlanta game made in like the 9th minute about like, Carnell sort of said to them, and I'll have to clip it and share it, but like they just wanted to sign somebody to play left back because at that point they were just throwing Ben Bender into the mix, which is not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a friggin' plan. I mean, I don't know. That was annoying when I was like, all right, we're just personally, I think left back is the most important position on any team.
Just about, yeah.
Because it just, if you think about it, more people are right-footed.
Ben Brecker had it. That's the guy. Aris. Sorry. Yeah, he's the guy.
Zakaria Aris. Okay. Not Fareed Zakaria from CNN, who I watched the other day when I was looking for Iran coverage.
But listen, to your point, Kev, I'm not sure when the clean break happen, but it's also, you know how this thing works, man. They have, and I'm sure they have a dry erase board somewhere with 5 names for every single position. That
Wait, do you know the dry erase board story?
is this the one that was pictured with the
discovery
discovery
list?
rights?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're triggering me when you say dry erase board, because I remember that was like the biggest story I ever did for Philly Voice was when somebody leaked that to me. And there was a picture of like a shirtless Zlatan on there. And then me and John Rossi who used to write for Brotherly Game, one of the guys who was on the list played in the Centenario,
Yeah.
Venezuela, and Rossi like asked him in Spanish, or no, he spoke English. That's right, because he spoke English because he played for like Knock Breda or something in the Netherlands. And he's like, "Did you know that you were on the Philadelphia Union's leaked discovery list?" He had to like explain the whole like what a discovery list is and like all this shit. It's like
That's hilarious.
it was so funny because we were just looking for any angle to bring it back to the Philadelphia Union. I asked Osvaldo Vizcarrando about Fernando Aristeguieta, even though he wasn't even playing in the damn tournament. But I was like, it was like how the TV stations when we worked in television, they could localize any story. Like there was a oil refinery that exploded in Moldova. You know, I want you to go find a Moldovan person in Philadelphia. And we'd find like the one fucking Moldovan dude who lived on like Bustleton Avenue.
Eating a pretzel or some shit.
Yeah, and we would interview him and be like, "What do you think about the oil explosion in your home country?" Or whatever. Like, I feel like that's what we were doing, but I digress. Good.
No, I mean, to bring it back to the topic, there's likely a dry erase board with the formation that Cornell likes, the 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2-2-2, and every single one of them probably has 5 or 6 names. And as they get off the board or move to different places, it just gets updated. And yes, Matthew's right. It is indeed a cohesive unit right now, or at least it was before this official interim role that John Scheer's taking. But prior to today's announcement, it was technically a Matt Ratatach, a Bradley Cornell, John Scheer, and I think at one point even the head of scouting, Chris Zitterbart, was mentioned as well. So I think that changes from here on out, or maybe that's what it was all along, and it was just sort of something pretty to put in the newspaper or stories that there's a cohesive group making decisions when maybe it was just somebody else altogether. Who knows, man?
Last point I just wanted to make from this list, I was working off the list from the story that I wrote last week on crossingbroad.com. It's called 12 Thoughts After Another Loss, in which the Union looked like the Philadelphia Flyers. You mentioned this briefly, and somebody else mentioned it in the chat, but I do think they miss Mikhail Ua in the sense of just plain straight line verticality. His ability to kind of latch on to the end of direct service and winning the ball back, and he's turned and he's taken off. These strikers that they have don't do that anymore. And sometimes when things aren't really working for you creatively, or when you have the ball, sometimes just go on route one. With it is the easiest way to do it. So I think they do miss his skill or the ability to flex into that with him coming off the bench. Ty Baribo being like a back shoulder kind of lurker with poacher skills in the box, just a pure finisher. The Union are actually like 8th in the league, I think, in total shots over 4 games, but they've only put like 14 of their 60 or some shots on target. And I think from the story I did today, the on target shot percentage is like 25.9, which is second worst. So they're hitting stuff. They're just not putting it anywhere close to on frame. And if you had Baribo and if you had Ua, maybe that changes. So I need some separation in that, that striker group and somebody to separate themselves for sure. But again, season's here, got to play your way through it. Got to give these guys minutes and see who's got it and who doesn't. But I think like to take it all the way back to the beginning, you just got to find your best 11 guys and go from there. You have the luxury of having a bunch of good dudes last year and the ability to go 18 deep, but you don't have that ability right now because you only really have 6 or 7 guys who are even playing like quality, first team minutes right now. Last topic for you before we wrap it up. Taking it off the Union entirely. The World Cup is coming up.
Is this your localizing beat right here? Further,
I'm fascinated. Can I be honest with you? We don't like do a lot of political shit on the show. Never really have. But I'm fascinated by the Iran thing.
Yeah.
Do you like? What's your read here? I mean, surely they're not going to come over and play based on what they've said and based on what Trump said, right?
I can't imagine. I mean, honestly, I was almost. I should not have been shocked, but I was shocked for a sport that makes as much money as Formula One that those races were actually. I don't know if they're flat out canceled or just rescheduled or whatever in the Middle East. I'm shocked that happened. I was probably equally as shocked with the comments coming out of the was it the Iranian was it the Federation from Iran or I forget who it was that ultimately made the comment, but yeah, I was shocked genuinely, and this is not I think this is as objective as you can. I was shocked to hear or read, I should say, a president say what he said about a football federation on a World Cup year, right? How close it is in terms of they're welcome here, but the reality is I wouldn't really advise that they come here. Like it was just such a like, what the fuck? Like just...
and like people took it as like a threat, and I guess, I mean, if the sitting president of the United States isn't like outright guaranteeing their safety, then how else would you interpret that comment? But I didn't think it came across as like they better not fucking show up.
Sure,
it wasn't said with that context,
Yeah, I think best scenario for this is honestly, and I think it is what they're, and I have no sourcing off the top of my head. I apologize. I can't remember where I saw it, but I would guess that the easiest solution to this is just do some last minute rearranging and throw a team from the Mexico games to wherever Iran was supposed to play, and then move Iran to play in either Mexico or Canada. I don't know. I mean, that's real screwy because groups are drawn the way they are for a reason. Teams have been preparing since to draw for these teams. I know people that work at U.S. Soccer and have worked in the youth level of the game, as well as now with the national team proper, and the preparation that they go through for these tournaments, whether it's a U20 World Cup or the Olympics, and let alone the big one that's coming here. The preparation's insane. So I can't imagine just pulling the rug on them and saying, you were supposed to play this team, but instead you're focusing on Iran. Like that would be just tragic for a lot of these teams. But I don't know what the solution is, man. I at the expense of sounding like a pussy or whatever, a pacifist, like I just want these teams to come and play, man. Like I know not many people made it to the Club World Cup. I recognize that there was very little appeal for people with how many games there were, how many teams were there. But if you did make it to one of them, I think you genuinely enjoyed it, especially being around those fans from, if it was the Morocco fans, or if you were fortunate enough to be at one of the River Plate games out in Seattle. Just genuinely fun. And what this World Cup's supposed to be is it's supposed to be the Club World Cup times 100. In terms of fandom and the melting of cultures. And it's unfortunate that it's under these circumstances. And as of right now anyways, and I just
here you go with your soft liberal.
I know. Clip this.
I just want everybody to come over here and sing fucking Kumbaya. We're all gonna have a great.
What am I supposed to do? Fucking, I don't know, man. Like,
no, but you're right. But dude, honestly, you're right, because these guys come over here. What do they think is going to happen to them? Nobody's mad at the fucking Iran soccer team. They're not the ones being targeted with missiles and shit. They didn't do anything.
Yep.
And so you set them up in the hotel. You give them some extra security. They'll be perfectly fine over here. I mean, is somebody going to attack them? Like, is the U.S. government going to go after them? So they didn't do shit. They're not the target. They're not the IRGC. Right. They're not the besieged military police or whatever the fuck it, and the thing that makes me laugh about the most is, like, of all the cities in countries in the world where Iranians have left to go to, like, what's the word? It starts with a D. I can't remember. Diaspora. Diaspora. Yes, thank you.
Leave it to the corner.
Yes, yeah. It was like evading me for some reason. the largest group of Iranians living outside of Iran is in Los Angeles, which is where they're supposed to play 2 games. If anything, they would have a ton of friggin' support there.
Yeah.
And maybe that gay dude from the Shahs of Sunset would have showed up to help them out too. You know, Reza, whatever his name is. My wife watched that show all the time. There's a huge Persian expat population in Los Angeles. It would have been very interesting to see if they come out in support of these guys. The only people who would have been in trouble are the friggin' handlers. Honestly, you know, because if these dudes come over and try to defect, or you get another Australia situation like with the women's team and they seek asylum, then what the hell, you know? But I don't think they got anything to worry about coming over here. I know everybody's like up in arms about ICE and all this shit. The World Cup's not in Minnesota. There haven't been any issues in Philadelphia, not that I'm aware of, or New York or whatever. Like, I think that's a little overblown. I think if Iran came over here, we would give them security. They'd be able to go play 2 games in LA. They'd go be able to play in Seattle. We're not sticking them in Alabama, you know?
Right. You're not sending them to, you know, Florida or somewhere like that, right? Where
although it does make me laugh because Sean brings it up. He says, "Isn't Iran scheduled to be part of the World Cup Pride game in Seattle as well?" They are against Egypt, and Egypt wasn't fond of it either. But if I read all that correctly, I don't think they're doing anything like in the stadium for that. I think it was like just in like a outside the stadium, like it was more of a city of Seattle kind of thing. It's not like Johnny Infantino was going to make the Persians wear like, you know, rainbow armbands, or like Scott Lawton's rainbow stick tape or something like that, you know. So I don't think there was any, you know, imminent threat of that being a disaster. But I don't know. I know that there's a huge expat population over here. It would have been interesting to see the reaction to all that. I don't think they have anything to worry about. I think that comment from Trump was taken a little bit like at blunt face value, when I think everybody knows kind of what he's talking about. He wasn't saying that we're going to drone strike them while they're training in Los Angeles. He was just saying, like, you know, the situation is hostile right now. Maybe it's not a great idea.
I just feel bad that it feels like they're just political pawns in a way, right? In terms of, you know, we're gonna leverage this group that's going into the territory of the enemy. Again, I'm just putting it like the territory of the enemy, like, you know, like, oh, they're our enemy within our walls, that type of bullshit. It's tough because generally those players, I don't know what teams they're playing for. I don't know. I'm guessing that the Union Scouts know a lot of shit about the Iranian 4th Division. If they're looking at players, like, they probably have a list of them. But all I know is that those guys probably just want to play ball and probably have very little to care about. I mean, again, to play in a World Cup, it's an incredible honor. And look no further than the past week and a half. Mexico just lost 2 players who are absolutely gutted because of ACL injuries that are missing the World Cup. Imagine missing the World Cup for something you had absolutely nothing to do with. And you want to be there, but because of the political game, you're not allowed for whatever fucking reason if something was to go sideways. It's a shame. I just want this World Cup to happen, man. I remember the draw when the U.S. were allotted the opportunity to host it and how exciting it was. And maybe I'm too young and naive, or maybe I have too short of a memory and haven't done enough reading, but it feels like this is one of the most complicated World Cups or maybe I'm at a stage in my life where I'm paying a lot more attention to this type of stuff. I don't know what it was like Korea, Japan. I don't know what it was like in Germany. I don't know what it was like in some of these other ones, even if you go back to the Argentina days and Mexico, etc. But I just want this one to go without a hitch. Not saying that 94 did, but hopefully it's as good of an experience and grows the game as much as 94 did.
Yeah, look, as I've always said, you know, this is the show that you go to when you want expert geopolitical and sport, you know, crossover. But I think we have a pragmatic approach to it, unlike some other people. Look, last World Cup was in Qatar. It was fine. The one before that was in Russia. It was fine. The one after this one is in Saudi. So it's going to be, you know, so that'll probably be fine. I think it's all, you know, you can have whatever thought you want to have about like all the ice shit and like, you know, things in theory versus things in practice. But the World Cup is a huge event, tons of security everywhere. We've had it before. We host global sporting competitions here on the reg. You know, I'd say as long as we don't have Colombian fans climbing through the vents like they were in Miami a year or two ago, then I think we're going to be okay. So that's that's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned. Jose Nunez, you can follow him on Twitter, or X as they call it. Jose R Nunez 91. I'll give you the last word in case there's anything you want to say that we didn't say.
I think what I would say, and I probably hinted at it throughout today's emergency pod. Hopefully we have one when the Union win 4 on the bounce, 5 on the bounce, and things are, sunshine and rainbows. I think it's early in the season. Obviously things are a little sideways right now. Maybe it's a result of seeing how good this team was last year and how hot of a start they had last year versus what they are this year. But there's still a lot of season. An absurd amount of teams make the playoffs, and you got to make the playoff to win the tournament. And I think there's a long runway to get there. 37 games, so 33 to go.
It's a very pragmatic way of looking at it. Would not work on sports talk radio, but it would work on this program. It's always soccer in Philadelphia. So thank you everybody for listening again. Hopefully we don't have to record one of these for a while, but if it goes from bad to worse, we'll signal the bat signal, show the bat signal. What would you do? How do you project? You would project the bat. We'll send out the bat signal if that's required. But in the meantime, everybody have a great week. Thank you for everybody in the chat participating. Thank you, Jose. And we'll see you next time.